Deal done. I fled from Yoko's physical domain and headed home to get to work. Jun was in his room getting ready for bed as I flopped onto the couch, which was perfect, giving me time to get started. I quickly started examining the code for short circuit. I noticed its benefits and weaknesses pretty quickly. The hack overloaded the microcircuits of anyone with Chrome. Basically, it tricked the safeties on the power supply to push everything into the system, which caused immediate electrocution. It did have some weaknesses. First off, you couldn't keep doing it to someone over and over. One short circuit usually drained the energy out of the Chrome, which meant after a single use, there usually wasn't enough power in the batteries to do it again. Of course, it worked on basically anyone with Chrome though, unless you were equipped with a grounding system. Most people aren't going to have that unless they work with high voltage in their day-to-day, but it was something to think about. Another problem was, as bad as it was to get electrocuted, it wasn't directly lethal. You could knock someone out with it, and sometimes get their heart to stop, but in the end it was just a powerful electrical shock. I pulled out the shard case that Yoko gave me and pulled out the shard containing the hack as I plugged it into my laptop that I gathered. The code bloomed out and I nodded. Whoever made this wasn't Yoko. I recognized her coding by now, having done a few debugs for her. This though? It was corporate. It felt like the sort of rote coding you would see from a group of people all cleaning up a single hack. It was impressive, but it was irritating, because someone had gone through and tried to black box the hack. With a bit of checking, I found the creator was Militech. Thankfully, I was intending on doing a complete rewrite anyways, but I still wanted to examine how people normally do it. Yoko was good at her job. She had picked a difficult to parse hack, but it felt like it was a little bit of everything. Multiple attack vectors were in the hack, and it had a dense targeting list for how to go about performing its duty. The problem was size. Like almost every hack I had seen, it bloated up with the quality of the hack. I closed my eyes and hummed as I considered the information in front of me. What did I actually want from the hack? How could I make it better? I could make it smaller, sure, but better? That needed something else. I had been pretty good at coming up with a gimmick for my hacks that made them exceptional in what way I needed. This was my first true offensive hack. It was like learning Lightning Bolt for the first time as a wizard, when only having CC spells before. What did I need a damage spell for? What was the goal? In the end, I wanted two things out of it. Oh, and disabling high-end Borgs. Mass groups of enemies were annoying, and being able to just take out a bunch of people at once was useful, but it was Borgs that were the biggest threat to me, although I guess that meant I was still thinking of it more like a CC spell than a damage one. Plus, I still remembered Kiwi's use of short circuit from the anime. A single hack that disabled an entire room full of maelstrom? That was powerful. I want it. So I dug through the code, finding interesting bits that I knew I could use, and started tearing away parts of the code that were just garbage. As usual, half of the code was seemingly downgraded. Even Militech kept the best hacks they made for themselves, while only selling a weaker version. I fell into the rhythm quite easily. It wasn't hard to just sit there and slowly build up a quick hack. Not anymore. It wasn't until Jun came stumbling out of his room the next morning that I looked away from the screen. Once again thankful for my Kiroshi, as my eyes would have been bloodshot after over 8 hours of non-stop programming. Morning, Jun. Mornin'. Wait, did you sleep? No. I was working. I'll get some sleep soon. I lied to him. It wasn't very often that Jun noticed I had pulled an all-nighter, one of the reasons I did try to sleep often enough that he wouldn't notice my lack of sleep. Well, go to sleep, he said, blinking sort of blankly at me as he was still half asleep himself. Sure, Jun, I agreed, not wanting to argue, as I turned back to my laptop. I had made good progress, but trying to work on the versatility of the hack was a time sink. I shook off the idea of just making it do one thing instead of both. This wasn't just for me, but hopefully a hack that Sasha could use to keep herself alive. I couldn't half-ass it. Jun left for work, still side-eyeing me, and I took a break from programming to do the rest of my attempt at daily exercise. Downstairs at the gym it was quiet, and I found myself doing some stretches with weights in each hand. It wasn't working my arms, but I still had muscles in my shoulders, chest and back. I was working through the reps, counting the number in my head when John walked over. Still interested in that spa? It's tomorrow. I agreed and he chuckled. "Derevaya in an hour work for you?" "Sure. I'll be there." I grit out as I ended the reps and stood up. Might as well head over and give myself time to recover. "Good. I know the kid is looking forward to it, don't tell her I said that." "I'll think about it." I teased but figured I might as well head over. Sensei would probably give me that look and demand to see how my training had been again. So I called for my Kusanagi, and started driving. The city was as busy as always, traffic beeping and honking and making a mess as everyone tried to get to work. But I wasn't in a rush, and I did love driving my bike. It didn't take me long to pull up to the dojo where an array of mizuchi were parked, each of them more ugly than the last. My march towards the dojo was cut off though as I smelled something pretty good and ended up instead sitting at a little meat skewer stand to the side of the entrance and chowing down on breakfast. Eventually my belly was full enough and I tipped the older man running the stall, as I headed into the dojo. It hadn't changed much from the last time I was here. As I walked in, there was a man waiting behind the counter, but I ignored him walking right in towards the dojo proper. I had a feeling Hayato would have already set up our little spar. She was the princess type like that. Inside there were the normal sounds of sparring and the clack of shinai as people trained. I was spotted instantly by Sensei who nodded to me and then jerked his head towards a corner. I looked over expecting to see Hayato or something but it was an empty corner. I looked back at him and he just quirked an eyebrow at me and told me with just his eyes he expected me to get to work. I sighed as I walked over pulling off my jacket and adjusting my holsters so they wouldn't get in the way as I threw my jacket over the shinai rack that was the only thing in the corner. With a sigh I picked one up and started practicing my forms as I waited, under Sensei's stern eyes. Dang it. I didn't sign up for this. What are you doing? A haughty voice asked me as I continued to work on my swings. Every time I had made to put the shinai away Sensei had noticed and given me a look. Judging. I don't know how he did it, but I just kept going instead of stopping each time. Stupid Sensei powers. Mostly? Getting judged really hard by an old man. Ready for the spar? I asked, turning to see Hayato had arrived. The girl was wearing a gi, with pads on her hands and feet, and she was looking at me like I was weird. Are you? You look exhausted. Nah. I'm fine. And I was mostly. Finally Sensei's look was more curious and not a demand to get back to work so I put the shinai back on the rack and stretched my shoulders a bit, enjoying the stretching of the muscles in my back at the action. Besides, even if I was a little tired, I had gotten a level up alert for blades just a few minutes ago, so that had perked me up more than any tiredness. Blades skill level up. Blade 7. Humph. Don't think I will go easy on you just because you have worked yourself over. She demanded in a rush, her voice coming out almost too fast for herself to keep up with. Shall we claim a space? I already have one. Come. She demanded and hurried, literally almost jogging as she headed over to space on the main floor that cleared out at her arrival. I shrugged, taking a moment to finish pulling off my holsters so I wouldn't have any issues, and as I walked over Sensei handed me a set of pads similar to the ones Hayato was wearing. The old man didn't say anything else though, which was par for the course. Sensei wasn't the type to say something when he simply expected you to know what to do. I quickly threw on the pads as Hayato was looking impatient and then bounced a little to make sure everything was tight. Ready? Yes. Now stop wasting time. She called out in return and charged me. I rushed her back remembering that leaving her time to act was the worst thing to do. Ow. You are fine. Stop whinging. She demanded at me, but like she kicked me in the tit. It hurts. The matches had gone pretty much how they had last time. She had proven the power of a reflex booster in close combat, while I had managed to surprise her for some wins as well. Say that after I kick you right in the tit. I snarked back and she gasped like I had said something absolutely outrageous. You. How dare. Do not say such things to me. She finally seemed to settle on, and I just rolled my eyes. Half the time I said anything she was likely to explode on me. Good sparring partner though. I had actually leveled up Street Brawler. Street Brawler skill level up. Street Brawler 8. It felt good, although it hadn't been enough to overcome her in the last match when she got her last kick in ending our little spar. This was fun. We'll have to do it again, I offered. We had a few matches, but both of us were pretty tired, her more than me. I bet if we had a few more rounds I would start winning a lot more. I was objectively a stamina monster despite how organic I was compared to Hayato, who had lots of chrome, but even that wasn't enough to cover everything. Fun? Humph, it was an acceptable match. You should get some booster wear. If you did, perhaps I would have a more even opponent. Nah. I can't stand Karens. They freak me out, I admitted, and she stilled for a moment at my words. Probably the most still I had ever seen her. You fear such simple chrome? How embarrassing, she said, snooty and definitely a little rude, but I just shrugged. I'll pick up a high-end Sandy eventually. I have some things in mind for it, that's my goal, but no way do I want a Karen. I couldn't stand how long everything takes. She was silent for a half a second, which must have seemed like a long time to her, as she just nodded. It is not for everyone. It is a challenge only some are capable of handling. I almost snorted at how arrogant that sounded, but on this one, I would give it to her. Yep, not everyone is capable of handling a Karen. Like me. Fuck that. Well, that was fun, I offered, as I made to leave before she scoffed. We still need to set up our next spar, she demanded, and I blinked at her. I gave you my number, just call me when you want? That. Fine. I will not be pleased if you refuse. I threw her a thumbs up as I headed out of the dojo. She really needs to stop watching so much anime. Too much tsundere was bad for you. Dash. The call came in. This is Motoko. Hey there, Ghost. I spoke to a certain Kitsune, and what do you know? She speaks very highly of a little programmer she knows. Sasha spoke every word like she was going to giggle at any moment. The amusement in every word was something that came through even the call. But she called. If I still had a handset instead of just a phone in my head, I know I would be clutching it with both hands, as I felt actually nervous about this conversation. Well, I'm glad Yoko is vouching for me. I've done enough debugging of her work, she had better. I grumbled, but then refocused. So I got all sorts. Already finished programs, and hacks, but I also do debugging, or commission programming when needed. I said, trying to sound casual at just how important this was. Just 1 gig. I just needed her to get through that 1 gig. Let me help you. Well, I don't usually outsource. How about this? Let's meet up. I want to get a look at what you have for sale, and I might have a program I could use some help cleaning up. I'm free today. Where and when? I prompted, already standing up from the couch where I had been working on Short Circuit again. I'm already hanging around Afterlife. I'll head over now. I hope you have the eddies. I might give you a discount, but I'm not cheap. PFFT. You're hilarious. I'll see you. The call disconnected and I let out a long breath. She had called. I had honestly not expected her to call, and Yoko hadn't said shit. I shook it away and rushed to get my stuff ready, grabbing my laptop to bring with me. I doubt she would need a direct visual for programming work, but you never know. Everything on the way was a blur, as I couldn't stop thinking about what I would say, or what I should do. I couldn't tell her, obviously. Oh yeah, you have a gig coming up to break into Biotechnica, don't do it? She was an edge runner. If she thought for an instant that someone leaked info on a gig, she would. Well, she would never do it. Okay. Maybe I could use that in the most drastic of moments. But I needed to make sure she was prepared, and not put in a position where her only option was death. I wanted her to survive. To bring to light the fact Biotechnica had let her mother die, and be able to live after. For that weight of her past to be off her shoulders and to still live on. I remember Johnny mentioning in the game once, about happy endings. There I stood at the stairs leading down into Afterlife. The groupies and wannabes that hung around took no notice of me. Despite everything I had done, I was just another face in a crowd. Here, for folks like us? Wrong city, wrong people. I muttered to myself. A reminder about happy endings in Night City. About how the path would eventually go, but that wasn't set in stone. Johnny Silverhand was wrong about most of the gonk shit he said. Taking advice from him wasn't something I planned to do. Wrong city? Wrong people? I would just have to change the city. Change the people. One person at a time if I had to. I walked down the steps with confidence. It was time to save the cat girl. You aren't on the list. The bouncer told me as he stopped me from moving forward. Damn it. PFFT. You should have said you weren't a regular. Sasha was laughing at me a while later. I had eventually gotten access after calling Sasha and being let in. I forgot how tetchy this place is. I replied with a light blush and a shrug. It was kinda embarrassing to need to call for help to get into the club. Well, that was fun. Come on. I've got a booth over here, she said, sashaying deeper into the club as we left the bouncer behind us. I ignored the music, and the bar following after the girl that I needed to save. As I walked in, I couldn't help but notice she grooved to the music as she walked, hips swaying and even twirling a bit as the music pounded. It was kinda cute, but a little distracting. Custom Netrunner suits didn't leave much to the imagination, Sasha. You should be more careful with shaking everything like that. Even I wore actual pants over my leotard. I followed until she came to a booth, and to my surprise it wasn't empty. The cat girl turned as she reached it and smirked at me with a look that said she knew something I didn't, which is weird because I have no idea what she was thinking. No, I was more interested in the fact that Maine was sitting in the booth resting back, face covered in those shades of his, and sipping something from a glass as he took me in. I could practically feel his eyes scanning me, both literally and metaphorically. Hey Maine, don't mind us, my cute little contact finally showed up. Sasha called out as she slid into the booth and then turned to me, patting the place next to her. This your contact? Shit, is this a kindergarten now? He grumbled, taking his eyes off me to focus on his drink. The temptation to move, to act was there, but that was gonk shit. I don't care if he insulted me, my skills would speak for themselves if it ever came down to it. Besides, Maine talked big, but only his loyalty to his crew was something I could respect. The guy had overchromed, and lost it in the end. So I wasn't exactly giving much weight to his words. So I ignored him, sliding into the space, and then pulling out a few shards and setting the laptop on the table. Here's a few examples of my custom work. Feel free to take a look, but no copies unless you want to buy it. If you have something you want me to check over, now's the time. Oh. Goodies. She chirped, snatching up the shards like an over-enthusiastic cat. I wasn't sure how much of that was her real personality, or just her persona, to be honest. It was kinda cute though, especially when she flashed me a smile in turn. Ah, Netrunner shit. Wim I here again. To look big and tough for me. Sasha replied, shooting Maine a big smirk that he just sighed at, and to my amusement decided to just stay quiet and drink in peace. Then Sasha pulled out a shard of her own. Tell me what you think of this, she asked, and I shrugged, took the shard and slotted it into my laptop. I checked it over and had to quirk an eyebrow as I read through her code. It was good. Solid. She was obviously no amateur about what she did. But I instantly felt my teeth grinding as I read through it. Why are there so many cat emojis? I demanded in frustration. Using cat emojis as part of your code base was just gonk. It's my signature work, Naya. I looked at her. She continued smiling like the cat that. Never mind. Instead I pointed at a segment of the code. Your emoji here got inputted wrong. That's why this section won't compile. I told her, and instantly the amusement on her face vanished as she jerked towards the laptop to look at what I was pointing out. She might have gotten some laughs at me with this, but the look of relief on her face as I pointed out a problem meant I got the last laugh. You caught that so fast. Debugging is a skill, and you have to practice it to be any good. That one was free. I trailed off leadingly and she smiled in return. Well, let's talk deals then, she offered with a grin. I like this hack. I heard about it down the grapevine. Would have bought it from Yoko if I could get her to agree to a deal. She said. My reboot optics shard waved in front of my nose. I'll have a short circuit done sometime soon as well, I offered, but she didn't seem very interested, which was annoying. I'll take a look at it when you finish it, she agreed without really getting into it. So how long would it take you to clean up the code here? she asked, sounding much more focused on her task. I ignored the question for a moment, instead checking over the code, scrolling through it, checking functions and basically just figuring out exactly what it was trying to do. It was. Fuck, I recognized this hack. Cyberpsychosis. I muttered and I looked up to see her grinning in delight. You are quick. What's that? Maine asked, but Sasha just waved her hand at him to quiet him down. Well, if you got the eddies, I can get this done right now, I told her, and it was true. The hack was basically finished. I mean, it was complicated. Definitely the most dense quick hack I had ever even seen, but it was still just a quick hack. Really? She questioned after a moment, like she didn't believe me. You pay the eddies, and I'll fix your work right here, right now, I told her, and her usual smiling face was gone, as if she was dissecting me before the edge of her lips quirked up and she fell into her normal smirk. I want to see that. Instantly her eyes changed colors, and I got an alert for a hefty dump of eddies into my account. Challenge accepted, I guess. I turned away from her, pulled my personal link and inserted it into the laptop, and then I went to work. The noise of my chrome fingers on the keyboard was the only noise in the booth besides the bumping bass of the music playing in the club for a long while. It actually compiled. Sasha muttered in surprise as she watched her quick hack go from just a pile of noodle code to a working, functional hack. I'll be honest and admit that I was tempted to copy it myself. Cyberpsychosis was a pretty nasty quick hack, but now that I've worked on it, I could just make my own that didn't have fucking kitten emojis throughout. So that means she's legit? Maine asked, and Sasha shook her head. No, she is more than legit. Sasha turned to me, none of the cute kitten persona on display. Why have I only barely heard about you? If not for the laughing man hack, I wouldn't know who you are. I don't really care about rep much, I admit with a shrug. I don't really do the normal netrunner stuff either. Yoko is like my only contact on the net. I've met a lot of 14-year-olds. Most of them are just script kiddies. Were you some secret corpo project or something? She asked almost in disbelief, but I just snorted. My mother was a netrunner. I explained, which didn't actually explain anything. The perfect answer. And I like programming. What's so special? Maine cut in. The big man had, to my surprise, mostly just hung back in the booth without a word. He had made a few calls from time to time, but had remained silent while I worked. Maine. I was planning on spending the next week working on that hack. She finished it in 2 hours? She looked at me and then just started laughing, making me look bad kid. You were fine. You did most of the work. Just needed some fresh eyes, I said with a shrug. PFFT. If your eyes were what did it, then please tell me what you chipped in, I want some. Kuroshi MK.1 I said, but it was mostly sass and she giggled in delight at my words. Huh? The kid's got talent then? Maine asked, and Sasha just rolled her eyes and shot him a look. She's a better programmer than I am, Maine. As annoying as that is to admit. She added with a sigh, then she pouted at me. Not fair. Sorry, not sorry. I gave her, but she had just opened up a chance for me, that I couldn't help but take. I wasn't interested in working for Maine. But to save Sasha. You know, I am a freelancer for other things as well. Infiltration, netrunning, sniping. I do combat as well, but I think the big guy already has that covered for you guys. I explained, but I could instantly tell Maine wasn't interested. Just giving me a pseudo grunt of acknowledgement. Even Sasha just looked at me like I was something cute. There were times my age was pretty annoying. I looked between the two and just shrugged, stopping it from becoming an issue. Well, just something to keep in mind. Then I rose up. All the deals had been done. Eddies had been transferred and Sasha now had a copy of my reboot optics, and I had done some work on her cyberpsychosis hack. Would it be enough to save her life? I don't know. I'll call you when I finish the short circuit, I told Sasha, and before she could respond I had gathered up my stuff and walked off. I couldn't change the way she saw me as just a kid. Even if she now saw me as a kid with serious programming talent. If that was the only connection I had, then I would use it. I just had to create something that would give her the advantages she needed. I went home and set to work, hammering the code with all the focus I could to try and finish it. I had no idea when the Biotechnica gig would happen. I just had to be ready before then. Life didn't let me bury myself into a hole though. An hour later the door to the apartment opened, and I glanced up to see Hiromi. Motoko. She cheered out as she charged over and flopped onto the couch, grabbing me in a hug as she snuggled in and whined from deep in her throat. Uck. Motoko. I did something totally gonk-brained. Don't be mad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Hiromi. I cut her off as she was sort of rambling into my side as she hugged me while laying flat. What's gotten into you? Tell me what's up. It's okay. I accepted a gig. On your behalf? I blinked a little. Well, you are sort of my favorite fixer. No, I mean. She sighed. I screwed up. Sorry, Motoko. I got a little heated and I said I had someone that could do a gig and I didn't ask if you would before taking it. That's. You don't do that. She berated herself. I wanted to sigh. On one hand I had Sasha stuff that I was in the middle of, but on the other, Hiromi needed help. And maybe a wrap on the top of her head. Okay. I said, reaching down and pulling her from the hug until we were both sitting and I could see her face. Tell me everything. I may have been bragging a bit. That I have this super cool solo that works with me? I mean, I never gave names or anything, but like, everyone talks about the bodyguards their family has, or the edge runner they have on retainer to do their backstabbing stuff. So I mean, I got called out today. Everyone said I was making shit up. So you defended yourself and accepted a gig? Right. The gig. So, Asuka Kimigari, she's in my class. Her rents aren't like managers, but agents. Not a huge deal. Not everyone can be a Tanaka, right? But her parents apparently took out someone on a gig. Some nobody, but he was a nobody that had a brother who isn't. She sort of waved her arms a bit before collecting herself, and sending me a text. She actually had put together a gig from the information she had. Asuka Kimigari was a brunette. Almost a disappointment she wasn't a redhead with twin tails, but we can't always get everything. Thomas Anderson is dangerous. Like he's got a rep and everything, and he is reportedly going to kill Asuka as the opening act to his revenge against her parents. Hiromi explained and I was frowning. The dossier on Anderson wasn't exactly thick. The guy was a solo, but his skill set included netrunning. So sort of like my own abilities. He sounded hella dangerous. Unification War veteran. The guy worked with Noosa, and had a rep even back then. Hiromi didn't have a lot of direct details. What little she had sounded like word of mouth, but that was still not painting a pretty picture. Okay, so you volunteered me for what exactly? To resolve the issue. Whether that's killing the threat, or bodyguarding? She said, wincing, and I frowned at her a little. You must have been really worked up. You're usually better at negotiating like that. And I could feel from the tightness on her shoulders that she was not pleased with herself. They were making fun of me. Of my parents, just. Of everything. You met my dad, but like. We aren't super high up in the food chain, Motoko. The Mitsunashi name isn't really respected, or feared. My dad and mom do good work, so they aren't really targeted by anyone, but that's all we can really say. So they were making fun of you, and you decided to prove you weren't lying when you said you knew a solo. Accepted the gig on my behalf, and that's where we are now? Yeah. Well, I'm not angry or anything. I'll help out, of course. Just next time let's ask first. I will. I'm sorry, she said, hanging her head and still looking pretty upset. Okay, so bodyguard or assassination. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this guy. So probably just bodyguard. I can try to get more information on him. Contacts, and if he has any normal haunts. That can help, but don't go crazy. This guy sounds like a pro, so let's be super careful. Maybe we should call Ichi and Malcolm in too? Make it a full Section 9 gig? My words seemed to have the right effect. Just as I said it, I could see the fire in Hiromi's eyes light up. I'll call them. We could use transport for Asuka, and Malcolm can help me investigate. Sounds like fun. I tell her even as I itched to return to the laptop, to finish the quick hack. I shook it off. I would do what I could for Sasha, but, while I wanted to save her because I felt for her, she wasn't my chum like Hiromi. Alright. Let's get everyone together, we should have a meeting with Asuka as well. I'll call her. I nodded as I stood up to head into my room. Time to get suited up. When all of Section 9 gathered together in a high-end garage under Asuka's apartment, I was surprised to see changes in my tunes. Malcolm did pull up in his Caliburn, which still made me giggle at how over the top it was, but he stepped out of the car with a Militech Saratoga strapped to his chest. I quirked an eyebrow at him, which he caught. I decided to upgrade my firepower. I got some better armor too. He mentioned to my delight as he showed off the Section 9 jacket that I had originally bought for my tunes had been modified. It was professionally done too. A few extra inserts into the tough material. He isn't the only one to get an upgrade, Ichi said, huffing a little at Hiromi and I giving so much attention to Malcolm while ignoring him. Unlike Malcolm, the first didn't spend all my eddies on an overpriced ride. Ichi sniped at Malcolm with a smirk. It was a great deal. So I did some extra work on my van, he said with a smirk. He walked over to the back of his van and opened the back door. I couldn't help but whistle as I saw what he had installed into the rear of the van. You bought an HMG turret. Well, bought is a strong word, he admitted, and I looked at him in surprise as he flashed me a grin. I helped, Malcolm revealed as well, both boys grinning. I've been doing some work for some guys I know. Transport mostly, you know? Ichi revealed. Despite his casual attitude, he was definitely peacocking a bit. So we had this gig. They were saying someone was going to shoot at me. I told them no. They said they need me. I said not without some protection. They gave me a Saratoga. He trailed off looking at Malcolm's new gun. Which was an excellent gift, Malcolm added, but Ichi just waved him off as he continued. So I said haha no. Eventually they offered me some real protection. They had this thing tucked away somewhere. No real use for it. They didn't have anything really capable of moving it without having to set it up before the gig. So they offered it to me. Malcolm and I bolted it down into the bed of my van, and we took it to a shop. So I can open the rear doors from the cab now. You turned your moving van into a pop-up tank? Hiromi asked, and while I wanted to argue that it wasn't a tank, but the Mk.31 HMG was sort of a tank cannon. A small one, but it did fire explosive rounds. I love it, I admit shamelessly. Me too, Ichi said, and we both shared a look of shared delight of HMGs. So now I can set up the van somewhere and have a surprise setup. I still need to armor up the cab a bit more though. That should really be a priority, I added, but Ichi shrugged. I only have so many eddies. Speaking of, how is the pay for this? Ichi asked, turning to Hiromi, who didn't look super happy. No, it's great, Hiromi revealed. It'll pay the bills, but Asuka is paying for this out of pocket. Arasaka student or not, she isn't. It'll be fine. We do a cheap gig now, and everyone will know you weren't joking when you tell them you know a solo, and next time you can charge a lot more. I spoke, trying to calm the tension, and thankfully everyone shrugged. I guess considering how well we had all been paid so far, it wasn't a major concern. Right. I'll take a pay cut on this one as well, since I sort of messed up, Hiromi added, which I was going to argue against, but Ichi and Malcolm both nodded, looking pleased. All right. Let's go see our client then. Sure, come on, Hiromi offered, waving us all to follow as we piled into an elevator and she sent us up to the 20th floor. We stepped out of the elevator into a long hallway that was pretty nice. Not quite Hiromi's own apartment level, but probably on par with my own. Hiromi led us. I could practically see the change come over my tomb as she switched from the teenager to the girl corpo. She walked up to a door and pressed the security pad at the door. I heard it and shifted, glaring at the ceiling where an HMG turret had just activated. It wasn't popping out, but it was there. Not even giving it a chance, I blitzed its defenses, skewering the ice and forcing it to remain shut down. Asuka, it's Hiromi, and the mercs I told you about. Hiromi? You're actually here? Alright, hold on. The security is in full lockdown mode. The voice came from the security panel, and after a moment the door opened. The teenager looked fully corpo in a way even Hiromi never quite managed. Sure, She had some understated flash, EMP threading going over one eye that was a different color than the other. Although both were optics, so she was just showing off. But I was most focused on the shotgun in her hand. Tacticians were good home defense weapons, but she really needed to stop sweeping the barrel over my chooms and I. Easy Asuka, it's just me. Can we come in? Hiromi said, smiling as she tried to calm down the girl who was obviously not doing well. The girl looked over the three of us as she ignored Hiromi. Only after she seemed to decide we weren't the man trying to kill her did she lower the gun. Come in, quickly, she demanded and backed up. Hiromi didn't wait, piling in, and the rest of us followed, entering into an apartment entranceway that had an already active HMG turret. I quickly shut that one down too, which startled Asuka as the door had just closed and her HMG had closed up. Wah. Easy, calm down. I just closed it down. I don't like that thing pointing at me. How did you even do that? She demanded, coming up into my space. Yeah, the girl was freaking out, her entire body was shaking. So I did the only thing I could think of and gently reached out and left a hand on her arm. It's okay. We are here to protect you. My sincere words were instantly rebuffed with a scoff. What the hell, Hiromi? I thought you said you knew some mercs. I do. Motoko takes work from Waikoko the Fixer, and has contacts all over. She can definitely help. Hiromi offered with a shrug, but once again my young body fought against me, and Asuka didn't look relieved. Fucking hell, Hiromi, what is this shit? You've been talking up so much shit, and you bring a bunch of kids in on this? She looked like she was about to start yelling, but her movements hadn't kept track of everyone, and she bumped back into Ichi, who gently grabbed her to keep her from jerking around. Hey, easy. We don't look like much, but we are here. Ichi offered. Something is better than nothing, right? Let us protect you. I wanted to point out to Ichi that I had literally just said that, when suddenly the girl's back stiffened and she even flushed a little. She scoffed again, but this time her shotgun was only being held loosely as she stepped slowly out of Ichi's hands. Well, at least I'll give you a shot. Hiromi, this better not be a joke though, she said, turning from Ichi to look fully at Hiromi. PFFT. I've been telling you gonks, that I have an actual merc team. Hiromi snarked, but seemed to take control of herself. But we aren't here for that. Section 9 here for bodyguard duty. Let me introduce everyone. Malcolm, Ichi, and Motoko. Motoko is in charge. She's a solo, and knows what she is doing. She doesn't look like much. Asuka muttered under her breath, but I didn't take it personally. The girl was twitchy. I guess knowing that a cyberpunk was after you for revenge would make any teenager a little jittery. Well, she is. I'll be taking Malcolm to do some investigating. Hopefully we can find your threat through our contacts. Ichi and Motoko will be staying with you. Ichi is a driver, he has a van ready if you need to run for any reason. Motoko? It'll be fine. I'll check out the security of the place, and maybe boost it a bit while I'm here. Is anyone from Arasaka looking into this? Other than your parents, I mean? I asked Asuka, who just sort of sullenly looked at me before shrugging. My parents haven't told me much. Okay. I have a contact in counter intel, I'll see if she has anything. Hiromi? Oh. That's right, that V woman you told me about. Good job, Motoko. I'll call Waikoko and some others, see if anyone has something. She said, mostly to Asuka, who looked a little surprised at the big names being thrown around. I moved away from the group, looking around the upscale apartment as I went, and made the call. Gonna have to do something about those windows. One entire side of the apartment was glass floor to ceiling. At least the place had some automated defenses, but HMG turrets were just asking to get someone friendly fragged if a netrunner was involved. Ringing. 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 I started to glare as V very obviously wasn't answering, but finally after a minute the call went through. Kid. What do you want? V didn't quite snap, but she wasn't sounding friendly either. Again, I didn't take it personally. That was just how V was, besides she had picked up. If she didn't want to be my chum, she would have just ignored the call, or blocked it. I've been hired to protect an Arasaka Academy student. Asuka Kimigari. Apparently her parents are Arasaka grunts, killed someone's kid brother and now he is after their kid. And I care. Why? Even if it didn't fall under your purview, this is a merc gunning for Arasaka personnel. You have any information on this guy? Thomas Anderson? The line went quiet for a minute before V just sighed into the line. You know I can't just give you anything. I shouldn't even be talking to you. V's tone was pretty firm, and I almost opened my mouth to pull the chum card, but that wasn't right. V wasn't in a job where something like that would just be ignored. I would be hurting her for my own benefit. Not exactly something I would do. You're right. I'm just an outside agent on this. Unless of course a certain agent contracted me out to help handle this. Payment can be a private affair between us. I trailed off, and the line remained quiet, before a single cut-off scoffing laugh came through. I'll send you what I have. The Kimagari issue isn't my workload, but if you can stop him it'll make me look good. If you fuck up we never talked and you never got data from me. Of course. The line went silent again, and when V came back she came back with a beep of a text coming through at the same time. Kid. I looked through this shit. Anderson? He isn't some street punk with a gun. The guy is a pro. Don't do anything stupid and get yourself killed. Jack will be pissed with me if you die like that. Thanks V. I'll keep you updated as well. If I get him you'll be the first to know. Good. I'll be able to throw it in Carlson's face then. Then because V2 studied the art of Night City phone calls she just hung up on me.